Hi, and welcome to another Morning Cup of SEO, where I take the week's worth of search engine news, I distill it down, and I present only those items that are relevant to the legal industry. Now, if you're a lawyer and you're watching this, what I want you to do is take a moment, forward this video to whoever is taking care of your marketing, whether it's a third-party company or if you have an internal marketing team. You want to send them this video. It's going to keep them up to date with the latest news having to do with search engine marketing for the legal industry. So as usual, I've got my handy dandy notes, so let's jump into it. And the first thing I want to bring up is John Mueller. He was on a video and was asked a question whether or not content on the first fold of a web page holds greater weight and it can rank a website higher. And if, in comparison, if that same page had that same content lower on the page. And usually Google, they like to dance around these types of answers, and this is kind of a similar thing. John Mueller did talk about, he did discuss that they do see that there should be content relevant, not necessarily with the exact keywords, but there should be some type of relevant content in that first fold just because of a normal user experience, and Google would expect that same thing to translate into, a more relevant page would have the content towards the top fold. And what I mean by the top fold, that's the first section on a website. So if you have on your cell phone, it's the first screen that appears. That's the first fold. And the same thing as if it was a desktop screen. So is there a greater amount of ranking that can take place on an article that has the specific keywords on the first fold? Not necessarily, according to Google. It's more about the overall relevancy within that first fold, that there should be something relevant to that topic, and that just makes sense, especially with Google's ability to, their machine learning ability, where they're able to decipher a lot more intelligently the topic of an article. So if your opening screen is not relevant to the content you're trying to rank for, you may want to rethink your strategy or rethink that page and how you're going to more intelligently lay out and present those items. So next, and there's only really two updates that are going on this week, but the second one is going to be a conversation, a topic that's been brought up a couple of times, and that has to do with the Web Core Vitals. And I'm going to go over this again. I talked about it last week, talked about it the week before, but there's going to be a lot of chatter about these Web Core Vitals because Google has announced that there will be a core update in June, and that core update will be about the Web Core Vitals. And I'm not going to go over what each one is. Or you can look at the previous episode, and I talk about what each element, each test is, and what it means. But what is important is that Google, they just released a video series, and they just put out the first one today, and they're going to continue putting out a video series on the topic of Web Core Vitals that will help a developer or marketing team better understand what they're testing and how you can benefit by having a higher score and presenting your page in a fashion that does not bring down the Web Core Vitals score. And if you want to follow that, find that channel, you go to YouTube and search for Google Search Central, and you'll see the intro video, and go ahead and just follow that on YouTube, and that way you'll get notified whenever they release another video. Speaking of which, go ahead and smash that subscribe button or like this page now so that you can get notifications when I come out every Monday and give you new updates about the legal industry and search marketing. But there was also a video about these Web Core Vitals where three Googlers, they discussed a hypothetical search engine and what they would do to make it more relevant in regards to website speed. And they bring up a lot of good points, and it really tackles the question as to how important, how major, is this update really going to be? How is it going to affect the search rankings? And so, although we have speed optimization, right? This speed that a web page loads is a ranking factor. It's a known ranking factor. It's an admitted ranking factor by Google. But how significant has been debated, and now it's in Google's own words, it is a tiebreaker, if you will. It is a ranking factor that it does hold a significant amount of weight, but it's not going to overwhelm or overweigh in comparison to relative content. Right, your headings, your titles, those foundational items that really signal what the content is and how relevant the content is. If Google, they brought up a great point. They said, listen, what if it was a blank page? It's going to load really fast, but it's not relevant to anything. And if you look at it at that type of extreme, then it starts to kind of make sense. And yes, it will be a ranking factor. It could be important, but my best guess is, and this is based on I've been following what a lot of Googlers have been saying and really looking at what Google has done in the past. And so what I'm looking at is that the Web Core Vitals will be very similar to what we've seen with the speed index as a ranking, or as mobile speed as a ranking factor. And that means that although it is a ranking factor, it will be based on the industry. So you will be pitted against your competitors, especially down to the specific search, where it's a tiebreaker, where everybody's ticking off that same box. Okay, now who has the better vitals and who has the faster site? And there can be a disproportionate weight placed on different metrics of these Web Core Vitals. For instance, take into consideration what is more important, whether the image, the largest image on the page, loads the fastest, or whether buttons move as the page loads and would cause a user to inadvertently click a button. Right, so that second one is probably going to be most important. And even in this video where they made their hypothetical search engine, they brought up a scenario and discussed this, where they said, what if you inadvertently purchased 100 pizzas? That's pretty important. That's a lot more significant than having to wait an extra half a second for an image to appear. And although both of those could play into the Web Core Vitals, the latter of those two scenarios, the ordering the 100 pizzas, that is significantly more important. And the overall score of your Web Core Vitals will be not evenly weighted based on the three different factors that are taken into consideration. So just think about that when you're prioritizing what changes you're going to be making between now and June, when this core update rolls out. I would be prioritizing the content shift and making sure that your content shift is the least amount as possible. Number one, it is an absolute user experience factor. You do not want the page skipping around as people are trying to read the content. It's a horrible thing to happen. So to minimize that as much as possible, just on a user experience. Also, it is most likely going to be the greatest weighed factor in the Web Core Vitals. And it can be that tiebreaker that can put your law firm above your competitor's law firm. So until next week, hit that subscribe button, like the page, and I'll be talking to you and giving you more updates next Monday. Bye.